Well, the resistance hasn't stopped. So there's one question, what is achieving? And then the next question is, has it stopped? It has not stopped. People are still protesting. Different formats, different forms, might be smaller in scales, but every day it is happening again. We have had several demonstrations the last only few days, on the graveyards, on top of the grave of the people who have been killed during the peak of the demonstration. That is still happening. People are joining. There are thousands of people, going to the funerals of these peoples or the ceremonies that are being organized. Also, we have a students' movements. They have started again. They have been protesting, thousands of them, against the regime inside universities, which I think is very brave, specifically after the massacre that happened. And over, 30,000 people have been killed. That did not stop people. I think what it actually did is to push people over the fear that might exist in the community. They are not afraid anymore. And I think the fact that they haven't stopped protesting means that they've made their mind, they've determined to continue until, the toppling of the regime materialize.
And and obviously, you mentioned the massacre. Uh, is there any indication that the regime might actually topple, or are they just kind of doubling down and they're prepared to just keep on killing protesters?
I think the level of the violence that we're seeing is actually an indication of how scared is the regime and how um, an existential threat was these rounds of protest to the regime. They've been so scared that they did not even this time try to hide the massacre. Massacring of protesters had been something that happens all the time. Iran goes through these cycles of protests and then severe repression. The regime has always tried to hide it, but this time I can't see even any desire to hide it anymore because they know that everyone knows they are unwanted inside Iran and people want them gone.
Right. Do you have family still in Iran who you're in touch with?
I have many families, many friends. I have my former students back there. So, yes, a very huge network. I have still back in Iran people that I love. I'm worried for them every single day. And I try to keep contact as much as possible with the blackout and, internet shutdown.
And what do you hear from them? Insofar as you can get in touch with them, what do you
Mhm.
hear from them about the
Yes.
mood over there?
So the anticipation that you mentioned is exactly what I'm seeing, like the waiting, the people are waiting. Um, what exactly that waiting is for, I don't think anyone is clear, but they are refusing to go back to normal life. That's what I hear. Shops are closed in a strikes, students are protesting, classes have been cancelled, even higher school students are refusing to go to school or, start chanting or singing inside the schools. Um, People are still looking for the body of their loved ones, even to find, a clue about where they are. There are so many people who have been disappeared since, a month ago. I have my own a former student in Iran. She's been looking for her 16-year-old son for over a month now. I think the majority of people um, are still in that mood of the revolution, and protest after protest is going. The whole revolution is moving into different areas. From bazaar to university, from university to the streets. So I think, yeah, what I hear is that this is not the end and we are still trying to do everything possible with bare hands, to go until the end.
Well, when did you actually come to Australia?
It was 2012.
Right.
I came here on a student visa to do a PhD. And then, yeah, I met my husband. He's an Aussie here. We got married and we have 2 kids now. So, living an Aussie life now here. I'm trying to do the advocacy work as well.
Right. So Iranians in Australia regularly join with Jewish rallies over the last couple of years, and that's now kind of being reciprocated with members of the Jewish community joining
Mhm.
pro-Iranian rallies. To what extent is that sense of solidarity based on like a common enemy against the current regime, and to what extent is it kind of historical based on the relationship between the Jewish people and the Persian people? Do you
Mhm.
think?
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's interesting to me that I've seen a lot of people are shocked about this bond between
Mm,
Iranians and Jewish communities in Australia. And I think it's because they don't know about the history that we had together, that civilizational history that Iranian people, Persian people, Jewish people, Kurdish people, we all lived together in that, part of the world so peacefully for a very long time. We tried to help each other, throughout all the, problems that either communities had in history. And even before, in modern times, before the Islamic Revolution in 1979 happened, we used to have a very large Jewish Iranian community inside Iran, living with, just as Iranians, like everyone else, together. Yeah, yeah, so like I know many Jewish people who used to live in Iran, and people who are now here or even haven't been in Iran at all. But I think the similarities between us, the cultural similarities that we share together, is really important to build that that bond throughout the history between us. And now in modern times, we have this regime that not only oppress people, Iranians and Persians and all other different ethnicities inside Iran, but they also transfer this oppression outside borders, and it includes, attacks to Jewish people. Either it is their praying place, or their religious sites, or even their business sites. It's just that anti-Semitism that is so deep into the regime. It's I think it's a mirroring of the oppression of Iranian people inside Iran as well, and people see this. People inside see this, that well, this regime had oppressed all the minorities inside Iran, Jewish people included. So they've been oppressed inside Iran, and now the same type of techniques and strategies that they used against these people are now being used against everyone else in the country. And yeah, I think it's the common enemy. They also it doesn't stop where we all know that this regime supports Hamas, it supports Hezbollah, it supports almost every single terrorist group that is out there. And I think that common enemy is what is now encourage Iranians and Jewish people in Australia to stand side by side. I know many Jewish people who joined rallies of Iranians in different cities, in Sydney, in Melbourne. Even here, in far north Queensland, we had members of the Jewish community joining our very small gatherings, and we're very grateful for that. And at the same time, Iranian joining, Jewish people in their gatherings against this Islamism and the regime in Iran.
So next week is the Jewish festival of Purim, which
Mhm.
centers on one woman's courage protecting her people from persecution in Persia. Today, some of the iconic images of the protests center on women defying the current regime, and there are some famous photos of women lighting cigarettes and burning images of Ayatollah Khamenei. How important is the role played by women in the protests?
The role of women is very important, and it has been very clear as well. Like women have been in front lines for a very long time, mainly because one of the first victims of this regime has been women. When they came to power, the first thing they did was to, strip women of all the rights that they had. So the role of women here is again comes to play because they are kind of the symbol, the symbolism against the regime that is technically a death cult, and women are being here portrayed as, the symbol of life and freedom. And the things they do is amazing, despite knowing how barbaric this regime is, despite knowing the torture, the rape, even execution that might come after protesting against this regime, still women are in front lines. They not only lead, people in many videos we see a woman going in front and start chanting and gathering people together in order to build up a demonstration or a rally in a specific area. We also know that even outside the protests, they play a very important role. Um, Basically, the generational knowledge that goes from our mothers now to us. These are all very important things that happening. You mentioned the Purim, so we have Queen Esther. So the story that is there is not a story that us as Iranian kids are being taught at school under this regime. These are the stories that our mothers told us and taught us what is the history, what is the bond between all of us together and how life, at one point people were all together, the Jewish community and Iranian community supporting each other. And I think that historical role is also very important.
So, are you saying that Queen Esther was a character in Persian or Iranian history as well, not just in Jewish history?
Correct. It is a story of all of us, as a civilization living in that area, geographically very close to each other and very, supportive of each other. Um, but that's not a story that a regime like the Islamic Republic regime would like to let us, learn about it. And it had never been I've never been taught that at a school. I knew nothing about it. I learned nothing about it at a school. This was something that have been taught at home, through, family gatherings and stories that our grandparents tell us. And that's how we learned about this historical bond between us.
Right. Now, I'm looking at you. You look like a modern woman, and obviously, as you said, you were able to come over here to study here.
Mhm.
So, what's it actually like to be a woman in Iran today? You were obviously allowed out of the country to come and study in Australia. So it can't be that bad, some people would think.
That's the thing, I've heard it a lot, that, oh, women are going to university, they can drive, they can do this and that, so it can't be that bad. This sounds very strange to me, especially that I hear it normally from people who have zero experience of the regime and even living under Sharia and all the the state enforced norms and frameworks, either for thinking, for dressing, for putting your clothes on, everything. In terms of Iran, living as a woman in Iran is a constant daily battle for Iranian women. From the time we wake up, we go to school or to university or to work, and then, you want to go shopping, you want to do your own things. Nothing, everything is very constrained, and we need to do everything based on the regulation that is imposed upon us. What do I mean by that? Okay, so if I want to go out in Iran, I can't go like this. I have to wear my scarf, I have to wear longer sleeves, I have to cover myself. I've even once had been fined, because I had nail polish in public. So the morality police stops you, check your clothing, how you look. And all the pressure that exists in the public domain is one thing, and then the constitution of the regime is another thing. All these restrictions have been regulated into laws, and it is now what we call the gender apartheid, what is exactly happening inside Afghanistan as well to women. Women has no right to their bodily autonomy. They can do what they want with their bodies. Okay. And go from there. When we get to family laws, they have no rights over, their children or the way they want their children to grow up or go to school. If they are married, they need their husband's permission to study, to work, to travel, to do anything, even to get out of the house. These are embedded in laws and regulations, and that's the difference. So this is not something cultural that is happening in Iran. It's actually being enforced upon people and their culture, which is completely different with the regime. It's being enforced upon them. And women, if when I wanted to leave the country, I had to take my father into a government office for him to sign off and saying that he's okay with me, his daughter, traveling on my own. So this constant humiliation and oppression is happening, and it starts from a very young age. Kids as young as 7 year old, they have to wear the headscarf and all the the formal uniform, covered uniform, in order to be able to get basic education. The segregation that is happening at a school completely separate girls from boys, and they don't learn to to understand each other, and that adds to everything. So yeah, yes, of course women are allowed to go university, but that's because they've been fighting for that. you know these days people publish some videos of women with no scarves in public, and saying, oh, everything's looking fine now. But that's not the case, because that is the results of bravery and resistance. It's not a kind of right being given to them by the state, by the government, because still up to this moment, women by law has to cover themselves to go to school, so to go to public anywhere. So if those women are gets arrested, they will be punished. Seeing them uncovered, without the headscarf in public doesn't mean that it is free now. It only means that these women are so brave now that despite knowing the brutality of this regime, they are still ready to do that and sacrifice even themselves, their own body and life, in order to resist against this regime.
Okay. So finally, there's a lot of speculation that there may be a war between Iran and the United States, or Iran and Israel, or Iran and the United States and Israel. Is that something that you think might or will happen? And would that be beneficial in terms of finally toppling the regime?
Hmm, that's a good question. I can't predict the future, what is happening. The what we hear from politicians, one day is negotiation, the next day is talking about the military assets in the Persian Gulf area. So I don't know what will happen, what is going to happen. What I know is the sentiment inside Iran, and the desperation that exists right now inside Iran is calling for international help. They are calling, we have Nobel Peace laureates who are calling for targeted strikes against the oppressing infrastructures of the regime. We have Mr. Pahlavi. He also asked for some targeted, strikes of these oppress, the IRGC, their bases, their military assets, and all of this. From inside Iran, all we're hearing, there are writings on the wall, graffitis, calling for help. The reason behind that is it's a population of unarmed civilians against a state that is brutal, violent, and follows no ethical red lights, or you know Nothing.
Right.
All they do is to just kill people in order to stay in power. So people are an existential threat to this regime. These people are not armed. They are fighting this regime, but they know very well that it is not really, the power balance here is not right. And that's why they are calling for this help. And I think it's very important to put their voice in the center of any decision that the international world is going to make. Because if there's going to be strikes and these strikes does not result in the toppling of this regime, I don't think, it would be putting Iranian people in the center of this discussion. So this is very important. The regime is in its weakest position right now during all these decades, and ideologically they are not going to change. There is not going to be any possible reform to this regime. So the only solution that exists out there is to topple this regime. The sooner the international community help Iranian people to do that, the safer the whole world will become. And I think the whole world would benefit from the toppling of this regime.